Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael from Fourth on Linux Journal, and today we're dealing with the question, has KDE lost ground to GNOME? Let's get started. If you are a long-term Linux user, then you may face different desktops, such as KDE Plasma or GNOME. But by the way, there are many other desktops like Cinnamon, XFCE, Pantheon, and so on. But today we're dealing with the two biggest desktops, and in my opinion, GNOME and KDE Plasma are the major Linux desktops. But if you look at the Linux distributions today, then you may encounter that most of them are using GNOME as the primary desktop. Why is that? Well, maybe it's because of Ubuntu. Ubuntu ships with, in the desktop edition, with GNOME. And I think we are sure that Ubuntu is still one or the most and biggest Linux distribution around the world. And because of this, I think many are using Ubuntu, and by that, GNOME. And so, what about KDE? When I started my journey in 2003, this was a different world. There were more or less three major distributions: SUSE, Red Hat, Mandrake. And by the way, these three distributions were my distributions I started with. I started with SUSE, then I checked Red Hat, and then I switched from Red Hat to Mandrake, and I used Mandrake for several years. And Nick from the Linux Experiment published in the past days a video dedicated to an old Red Hat version, and I watched the video and then I saw this old GNOME desktop, and I thought, oh my God, is this ugly? In my opinion, it was ugly, and this was the reason why I switched back then to KDE. And when there was no KDE Plasma, there was KDE. It was K desktop environment. And I used KDE for many years, and with Ubuntu, I think it was 8.04, I switched from KDE to GNOME, and since then I'm more or less a GNOME user. But in the past month, I also checked KDE more, because I was interested in the question, well, has KDE fallen behind GNOME, or is GNOME the major Linux desktop? A very interesting question. And I have made some notices for this, and let's try to figure it out. Let's come back to the toolkit behind these desktops. GNOME uses GTK4 with libadwaita for a consistent and modern user interface design. KDE, on the other side, is based on Qt 5, a flexible and very powerful framework. And we can't go on without talking about design philosophy. GNOME is a minimalist and clearly structured desktop with more or less limitation in customization options. On the other hand, if you use KDE Plasma, there is a highly customizable desktop with numerous options and visual effects. And to be honest, KDE has far more possibilities, chances, or whatever you like to call it, to customize a desktop than GNOME. And let's talk about some technical differences. GTK libadwaita is more focused on mobile and adaptive layouts. If you use Fedora with GNOME, you may encounter that there is no taskbar, there is no option for a classical desktop usage or desktop use case. You have either to use mouse gestures or shortcuts, or you're installing some extensions for GNOME to make it usable or suitable for you in your desktop use case. On the other hand, if you use Ubuntu desktop, then Canonical modifies GNOME to deliver some desktop experience most users should work fine with, and I think it is so. Ubuntu makes this job very good at this point. They are delivering a desktop, and you don't have to modify it in some way. It works. It just works. You can use it. You can use it with mouse. You don't have to think different. It's just working. And I think this is also some point in regards to the target audience of these two desktops. GNOME addresses to users who want to simplicity and consistency. It should just work. KDE is dedicated more or less to power users who want to appreciate control and, of course, who like to personalize the desktop. And yeah, I think you're either one or the other. That's it. Yeah. So the question is still, or the question still occurs. Has KDE fallen behind GNOME? Well, I don't think so. It's not, has it fallen behind or not? It's more or less what target audience you are. Do you want a desktop simply works? Use more or less GNOME. If you want a desktop that have options to customizations, then why not give KDE Plasma a try? But like I said in the beginning of the video, if you look around, let's say DistroWatch, and you're checking the distros, then most of them are delivering GNOME as primary desktop. And for instance, if you use Ubuntu, GNOME. If you use Fedora, GNOME. And Ubuntu and Fedora are honestly two of the biggest and largest Linux distributions, and I assume also some distributions with the most users. There is one Linux distribution that sticks with KDE Plasma. It was in the past and is today. That is OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is a primary KDE Plasma desktop distribution. And you can also use GNOME with OpenSUSE, but it looks very ugly, my opinion. Maybe you say different, and sorry. But OpenSUSE is still a KDE Plasma desktop distro. And in my opinion, there is some lack of Linux distros that are delivering KDE as a primary desktop. But there is some point I would like to address. And Fedora has made a change with Fedora 42. In the past, there was only Fedora Workstation based on GNOME. There were some spins. There was also a KDE spin. But the KDE spin has promoted to, let's say, the same range than the workstation. That means there are now two primary Fedora Workstation editions, the traditional workstation with GNOME and the KDE desktop edition. And in my opinion, that's a very good news for KDE Plasma. Why? Because GNOME is known, because Fedora is known for its using the newest cutting-edge technologies, for very progressive. And I think KDE Plasma will benefit from this decision from the Fedora project to promote the Fedora KDE spin. Yeah. So in the conclusion, I would say KDE Plasma hasn't fallen behind GNOME, but it clearly holds some specialities, and it's more or less pointing to you're either a user who wants a desktop that has a clear interface, go GNOME. If you are a user who likes to customize the desktop, who wants to have full control over everything, go KDE Plasma. So, what do you think? What is your desktop? What is your preference? Please tell it in the comments. If you like this video, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and you can also share your opinion in the comments. I'm curious about. So, have a nice week. See you soon. Bye.